my father was a minister's son, so he traveled all around. But his father knew the plant manager at Goodyear.
Okay.
And even though my father was a graduate engineer, it was 1933 and there were no jobs. So there were no jobs. There were no jobs for engineers. There were no jobs. So my father got a job working in the factory, as he continually said, for 35 cents an hour.
Wow.
And felt lucky to have a job. And he worked in the factory for 2 years before he actually got to do the engineering that he was trained for.
Right.
My mother was born in the States, but her father and mother, who were both born in Canada, came back to Canada, to Cobourg. So my grandfather was a math teacher. And so he had one son and 3 daughters. So he thought a boys' school where he was teaching wasn't a good thing. So he came back to Cobourg to teach math. So my mother grew up in Cobourg for part of her life. I guess when she was about 11, they moved to Cobourg. And then she went to U of T and did history and English. And then her father had a job with the school board here. Her father was teaching math. And so they needed a history teacher. So my mother applied, and they hired her on the condition that my grandfather take a cut in pay. Mm-hmm.
Seems against union standards.
Well, it is. Like today, that would be, I mean, that's outrageous. But she thought she was lucky to have a job. She considered herself very lucky. So.
Yeah. So when she took the job here,
Mm-hmm.
then she was here.
She came to Bowmanville, and she sang in the choir at Trinity. And in the evening, there weren't a lot of people that came to the service, but she did see a young bachelor sitting in the back row, because my father grew up as a minister's son, so he, of course, went to church. And she took a look at him and thought, So, yeah.
Amazing. So did they get married in Bowmanville?
Did they get married? Yes, they did. They got married at my grandfather's home by my other grandfather, who's a minister, to marry them.
Isn't that amazing?
Because my mother's father by this time had a stroke, and he was in a wheelchair. So they were married December the 13th, and my mother was very pleased about that, because she said she had a contract. In those days, if you got married as a woman, that was the end of your job. So she was very happy about getting married in December, because she had a contract with the board. They had to keep her on until June, because she had a contract. But then that was it, because she was married. But however, then she was married in 1940, so the Second World War was raging, and my father was excused from war industry because he was working at Goodyear doing some kind of productive war work, I guess. And then a lot of the men went off to war. So, suddenly there's a teacher shortage. So by this time, my mother had 2 children. And so she went back. She could teach art. So she went back and taught art in a couple of afternoons a week, which she loved. And then once my brother and I got a bit older, she went back full-time teaching. So
Great. So 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
you and your brother.
Mm-hmm.
And did you grew up in this neighborhood?
I grew up in
right there.
that house. Well, before that, it was the house on Silver Street, yeah.
And you live in the neighborhood?
I live right there, yeah.
So you live in the house you grew up in?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, wow. I love those stories. There's a few of those that I've encountered where, people just, they've been in the same house for decades, right? And you kind of watch things evolve in neighborhoods and in towns from the same vantage point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have pictures of you, like, first days of school in that house, kind of, and then...
I don't think my mother took pictures of me first day of school. We didn't do that. But, growing up in that house, I hated it because it was an old house. Mm-hmm. It was cold in the winter and it was hot in the summer. I said, I will never. Yeah. Anyway, here we are.
Yeah, so did you inherited it directly from your parents, or was there any owners in between?
No, my father died, and then my mother died, and we were left some money. Mm-hmm. So I had to buy my brother out. And I wasn't sure. My father didn't do a lot of major repairs in the house. Mm-hmm. So when we were moving in, new wiring, new plumbing, new insulation, new so anyway, we fixed it up. I never really left Bowmanville because I kept my doctors, my dentists, and my parents were here, so I was back and forth all the time. I mean, we were here all the time, and Robert's parents were in Newcastle, so we never really left. You know, I taught. I mean, we were in Oshawa for, I guess, 30 years, but then the thing that happened to me was when my father died, I came from Oshawa, and I would park my car in the driveway. My father had bank accounts in every bank in Bowmanville, and they were all within walking distance. McGregor's drugstore was within walking distance. My doctors were here. My dentist, I could walk to all of them. I could just leave the car right there. This was the library, so my mother and I were in the library all the time, and like the museum, and the church was within walking distance. So, you know, I thought, where we lived in the suburbs, we had to drive everywhere. Right. So I said to Robert, you know, this might be a good thing. Well, he wasn't too sure, taking on an old house, and he wasn't sure how I would feel about it. Like I might see ghosts. That hasn't happened. So.
It's worthwhile though. I mean, even just like sometimes you go into a house and there's just like the way the light falls in the afternoon, or the way that it smells, or whatever.
That's
and
what
it's
I love.
Yeah,
because I get in the morning, I get the light in the kitchen and the dining room because they're on the east side, and then in the afternoon it comes in the other, so the west side. So there's light all around.